Roguelites. That genre that feels like slamming one's head into a wall over and over again until someone finally puts a cushion there. A genre that asks, what if the game is just this, over and over until you run out of steam? A genre that delights thousands of gamers every day, which is lucky because there are seemingly thousands of them launching every day. Morbid Metal is the newest roguelite to hit the scene, and despite our usual rule of not reviewing early access games, we think this one has an interesting enough origin that we'd stray from our usual rules. Which is twofold actually, as this AA game is being published by big dog Ubisoft, which as you may know, is not an indie company. But does this new roguelite carve itself a new loop in the dirt, or is it just doing the same thing as all the rest? But first, head over to patreon.com/I Dream of Indie Games, where you'll be able to support real people making real things and gain access to a whole bunch of awesome rewards. Okay, fine. Roguelites are not my favourite genre. It takes something very special for me to really enjoy it. One that pushes the boat out and tries something new. One that's story is so interesting that I simply must find out what is happening. Or one that is bright and colourful enough to keep all my synapses firing. And Morbid Metal tries very hard to do some of those things. Before I get into the game's content, let me tell you about how it came to be. Morbid Metal was initially created years ago by just one man, Felix Shade. He uploaded a small clip of this university project onto Reddit in 2017, and it got a lot of attention. Subsequently, his one-man band became a small orchestra, and he and around 10 people began to develop the game in their new studio, Screen Juice. All these years later, and Ubisoft have picked up this bad boy to make sure the last stretch of development is just perfect. So, that is how the game began, but what the actual flip is it? AI. Notoriously bad, kind of sloppy, and also a bit dumb. But not in Morbid Metal, as you play as the last AI created by an all-powerful and kinda bossy entity known as the Operator, a being who aggressively sasses you the whole time, instructing you to take down the rogue AIs that inhabit this mysterious collapsing simulation. But what are we fighting for? Well, we are attempting to stop the never-ending violence loop and repopulate the Earth by, I assume, plugging our hard drive into their Linux box. While we fight through waves of the Operator's mistakes, an enigmatic and gorgeous giant woman called Eden takes us away from the battle to give us kind encouragement and also boost our skills and abilities. She's also provided us with a safe space to hang out between runs known as the Void, in which you can find permanent upgrades, unlock new corpora, more on that in a minute, discover pieces of lore, and compete in an endless combat encounter to test your metal. Your morbid metal. Your character has a few different attacks they can use to take out their enemies. A basic attack, 2 regular abilities, and a special attack, all of which currently have one alternative that you may find in the many chests dotted about each area in the loop. Our starting character Flux is a speedy fighter. Their abilities are also all about fast-paced action. Blink Strike zips you to a target enemy, landing a powerful blow. Nano blades launch out of your sword and can be aimed at enemies, and your special attack is a series of fast-paced blows that can insta-kill your enemies when they reach a certain threshold. But like I say, all of these have alternatives, and the routines you pick up after each battle may skew your attack choice. But Flux is not the only character you can choose from. The early access has 3 characters, all with their own set of skills and playstyles. While Flux zips around, Eku smashes his large sword down into the battlefield, flinging enemies into the sky or smacking large groups with his spinning blade. His routines are focused on special armour, which stop enemies from being able to damage him whilst his slightly longer special attacks take place. What is unique about Morbid Metal is that these characters can be swapped out at will during each run, meaning you'll need to keep track of all of their attack gauges as well as their shared health bar to make sure you're fighting in the most efficient way. This fluctuation of fighting styles can be a bit jarring, but does lead to some interesting battles and some pretty big damage numbers when played well. Now here, I unfortunately raise my first problem with the game as it currently stands. I will admit that I am not good at melee combat most of the time. However, I do feel like there were multiple occasions in which I died because I was hit while my character was exiting an animation after doing their special ability. It wasn't consistent or repeatable when I tried, but the boss in particular will rock your shit as you exit an animation and there is simply nothing you can do about it. As well as different attack protocols and the mid-run upgrades, there are certain collectibles known as corpora that buff the entire run, giving you more health, higher damage, quicker skill charges and lots more. Though I have to be honest, getting corpora out of a chest was few and far between. So that's protocol, routines and corpora. Are you keeping up? In order to unlock more options for corpora and to upgrade character stats as well as to ensure certain shrines appear en route, you'll need to spend void points you acquire during your runs, because as we know, nothing comes for free, not even the sweet release of death. Within the current early access build, you can play through 2 of the biomes. Each biome has a relatively decent selection of different arenas, most of which have secret hidden chests or items that can heal you or give you some of the in-run currency which you can spend on buffs from the exchange points either midway through the biome or, once upgraded, within secret arenas. Unlike other roguelites, there aren't branching paths, and while there are multiple doors you can enter after beating enemies in most areas, all but one will be dead ends, much like most of my relationships. And so herein lies my other issue with Morbid Metal. Much like me after eating cheese, I think the runs go on for too long. To get to the first boss, the average length for me was 20 minutes, and that was without doing the optional challenge rooms that are set up with some kind of combat trial to complete. And while that may be pretty average for most roguelites, with there only being a somewhat limited selection of rooms per biome, I found myself bored, which is something I know can be countered thanks to games like Hades. The game ran well for about 70-80% of the time, though there were a couple of occasions where I experienced pretty significant slowdown, mostly during combat encounters, which in a game all about timing and dodging is a little bit tricky. In terms of Steam Deck play, when playing via remote play from my PC, it worked fine, but when running the game natively, it was not optimised and I would recommend waiting it out, unless you like fuzzy graphics and wonky control input. Visually, the game looks great. It's the perfect blend of sci-fi and a little sprinkling of fantasy. The character designs are really detailed and interesting, smashing together android designs and traditional Japanese stylings for all 3 characters that do blend well with the Japanese inspiration which can be found throughout Sublime Gardens. There are a few different enemy types, 10 to be exact, all of which range from small melee and ranged flying enemies to giant bosses that will kick your ass. They are also perfectly designed for the world which the devs are trying to create. The sound design is lovely with some decent music and sound effects, but I truly can't say it really stood out to me. Though the voice acting from the operator and Eden were suitably haunting and regimented, which had lend themselves to hammering home the simulations we were a part of. Overall, I think Morbid Metal has the potential to be some people's favourite game. It's fast-paced, challenging, and has a pretty interesting premise, though I fear it is not interesting enough for it to stand out at the crowd at this point. I'm hopeful that with some time in early access, and with big money Ubisoft propping up the small team, they'll be able to tweak a few things to really bring it to a wider group of people. If you're looking for a roguelite to play that will get you into the genre, I can't say this is it. But if you're interested in actively making a change in a decent roguelite that just needs some tweaking, and you already love the genre, then perhaps getting in on Morbid Metal early isn't a bad shout. The full early access roadmap will be revealed at the Find Your Next Game show on April 17th. So if you want to know exactly what you're going to get and when, you'll need to wait a few weeks for the full details. At I Dream of Indie Games, we don't believe a game just deserves a number. So we've created our very own scale where indie games are ranked from a real stinky indie Krampus all the way up to the bright, shiny, golden genie lamp, meaning it is an essential game that you simply must play. With the game still being in early access, I am hopeful that upon release this grade will increase. But for now, Morbid Metal earns itself a bronze genie lamp of approval.